how to grasp it and talk to it, is the question that I constantly ask. How can I understand mind? And can I actually talk to my mind? And the wisdom of Ayurveda in addressing stress, cravings, and addiction. So, etc. Many times learning is like, it's an explorative journey. So we start with the plan, this is what we want to learn. So I actually added etc. in the topic because perhaps it might become just the etc. and we'll leave out all the other things. Because many times etc. is all that matters rather than what we are chasing. So that kind of explains to you how structured I am. Okay, something I must confess here is, I don't have any expertise on the topic of mind, but I have great curiosity. And I always like to explore, what it all means within the context of health and well-being. And you'll see that within today's our discussion, we'll largely be looking at it from the health and well-being perspective. That's simply because I've always been a health practitioner. So although I bring philosophical aspects of Ayurveda into my own study, I still would look at it whether it has any application to health. So that's just because I've always been a health practitioner. So that's a limitation. Why I actually chose this title, Mind and its Ups and Downs and How to Grasp It, will become very clear very soon when we look at the Ayurvedic or the Vedic model of mind and health, etc. But the very first concept that really strikes to me is within the Vedic culture or Ayurveda or yoga, you never become an expert. Not because there's so much to know, but the purpose is not to become an expert. The purpose is to be an explorer. Because there's more joy in exploring than becoming an expert. Once you become an expert, you get bored. So you will have to now find something else to become an expert at. And especially with life and mind, I think the day when we become experts of understanding life and mind, I think we no longer actually need to look forward to living. It is about exploration. And there's a Sanskrit term which is Swadhyaya. Swa is self, and Adhyaya is study. The whole of Eastern knowledge system is about Swadhyaya, is trying to understand and study the self. It's not self-centered study. Is it selfless study? Perhaps no. Is it a selfish study? No. Because Vedas do not see anything as positive and negative. There's no duality or binary classification of thoughts and experiences in Vedic wisdom. everything is about that's the way it is. And this concept is what has led to the philosophy of Advaita. Dvaita is duality, and Advaita is non-duality. So, when you consider ups and downs, if I ask you how many of you would prefer to be in this state? All of us, would want to, but how many of you wouldn't want this one down?
Well, you've got to head down to now, haven't you?
Right.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So let that work.
Yeah.
That bringing them into balance.
Yeah. So the reality is, feeling great is not necessarily good, and feeling sad or is not necessarily bad, but it is how we interpret the experiences of feeling good or feeling bad.
There's people labeling those experiences as good or bad rather than just
yes.
it is how it is.
Yeah. So
I think there's just the two sides of the coin.
yeah. Yes, it is. So that's the way.
One or the other.
Yeah. And if you look at stress and cravings and addictions, they're not necessarily within the Vedic wisdom, they're not necessarily bad. They have certain consequences which can be bad. So it's not about running away from stress. It's understanding stress, it's understanding cravings, it's understanding addictions, it's understanding depression, it's understanding anxiety, it's understanding what it is to feel happy. And I think anyone who does not have an experience of many of these will not be able to actually appreciate what it is. So, do you actually see that often when it comes to spiritual learning, people think our goal is enlightenment, and I very strongly disagree with that, because enlightenment is something for which you don't need to strive. Within the Vedic wisdom, that's guaranteed. But the attitude of I want it now and I want it right now is not what actually is going to help. I guess I always kind of am aware when I see myself and when I see my patients or other people that I'm in close contact with, I always take myself back to this Swadhyaya. And then I kind of think, see, look, everything is an exploration, it is a study. And that kind of holistic connectedness actually makes it possible to see a solution. Otherwise, it's very hard to see a solution when we don't kind of understand that actually, there is no duality. That's the way it is. And the best example I can give is that, for myself, maybe it is also true for you, that I usually have one day where I feel very good, and then the next day, usually I don't feel that good as the previous day. But then that day, I kind of just wait for that day to be over so that the next day can be better. And without a doubt, it's always that if today is good, tomorrow is not so good, and the following day again is good. Does it happen to you as well? Like there is...
Waves, you mean waves of...
Yeah. Not necessarily as, today I feel great and fantastic, and tomorrow I'm completely depressed.
I think it's the way of just accepting wherever you are at that day, resistance. So if you accept your sadness or your happiness or whatever,
Yeah.
you don't kind of get sucked into that mental analysing of it all.
Yeah.
Just accepting the way of being.
Yeah. So it's almost like when one starts to actually observe oneself and think that we're not always the same. Our experiences, our perspectives, our approaches keeps changing or keep shifting. Not necessarily in a polar way, but there is a difference in how. So then we don't need to necessarily identify ourselves with happiness or sadness. That's what I mean. If somebody says that, okay, Vijay is always a happy person, that's the worst lie you can tell. Right? Nobody can be happy all the time. You might say, actually, it would be so great if everybody can be happy all the time. But what I'm saying is that's not necessary. Then we don't learn anything if we are always happy. And that's what Vedic wisdom is about, is that you don't need to feel overwhelmed and be very frantic about what's happening within your life or in the world. But all that we need to be aware is actually to see what's happening and then to see where we stand with it.